Good morning, everybody. My name is Lori Cross, and I want to welcome you here and online to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, where we covenant to weave together the fabric of community from the strands of our separate lives. We are an inclusive, welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. I have a couple of announcements to make. Let me see if I can find them. The offertory today will be split between this fellowship and New Jersey together. You will hear more about that in a little bit as we get close to the offering. Thank you for that music, as always, Stearns. As you know, we are going to be looking for a new director of music ministries. So I want you to know, next Sunday, a week from today, in person, after the 11:15 service, or on Monday, May 16th, at 7:30 in the evening via Zoom, the search committee, which will be looking for our new director of music ministries, will be seeking and welcoming any input, thoughts, ideas you have to try to replace the irreplaceable. Right. Please help us with this impossible task. You can also email your suggestions or questions to musicsearch@muuf.org. That's musicsearch@muuf.org. Finally, I just want to say the worship arts team is going to be planning the coming year of services. And as you know, we share services with a minister. Some services are led by a minister, some are lay-led. If you are 12 or 22 or 82 and have a thought, an idea for a service you'd like to see, please reach out to us. You can contribute an idea, a poem, a thought about a song. You can contribute a talk. Any combination thereof, we would welcome and be excited about your input and ideas. Okay? Okay, finally, I would like to invite, I'm choked up just saying it. I'd like to invite Beth Wilson up to share some amazing news.
Good morning. About 4 or so years ago, I had an idea to make a labyrinth quilt. And I thought about it, I talked to people, and finally we were shutting down. And there was a sign out there that said building and grounds closed. And Joe and I disobeyed, and we went to the back and drew a picture of our labyrinth. There it is. 6 inches square, that's our labyrinth. And you'll see that that says March 2020. And now you go to the next picture, that says April 2021. It really did take me that long to do this 6-foot labyrinth. Now, oh, thank you. And it's entitled Finding Your Wisdom, and that comes from one of our sources. And I love that our hymn book calls the living tradition, meaning our religion, not, it doesn't say our religion, it says the living the living tradition draws on a number of sources. And one of them is wisdom from the world's religions, which inspires us in our ethical and spiritual life. So in the beginning, I had the idea of the labyrinth, and I had the idea of the different religious symbols, and I put it all together, and it wasn't enough. So I started, in the quilting stitches around the labyrinth, I started writing words, and I got those words from all of our Zoom sermons throughout the pandemic, and You can't see them on there, but here is, whoops, you can back up. There is all the symbols, and the next one is all the words. And I put love in the middle, and you can come up afterwards, and there's some sheets there that you can take, and both sides have those last 2 slides on them. They're color-coded, so if it's yellow words, you're going to find it in the yellow circle. And you start at the bottom, and there's footsteps in, and you work your way around, and footsteps out. And the design philosophy through all of this is nothing was going to leap out at you. You had to stop and think and meditate and find your own wisdom. And I have to say, I've discovered that there may be some learning opportunities for people, because I had to use a sewing machine to write the words. So it's all in script.
Well, I'll say I invited Beth to share this beautiful spiritual practice and journey she was on this day that we're sort of dwelling on self-care and nourishment. And this really will be a visual spiritual practice for folks. So I encourage you following the service, and we'll keep it up throughout May and June. Yes?
Yeah, and tell folks online that there will still be.
That's right. There will be, the key will be here. So if you're online, you'll be able to look up close at the words, and we'll probably go ahead and email out the key so people can actually see it online as well. Some people are too far, at least one in Japan, too far to just come by. So wonderful. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Let us open our time by sharing in the words we offer so frequently as we light our chalice together, the covenantal words written by James Villa Blake. And I invite you to join with me. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And then I invite you to join Lori. Would you join me up here? The two of us will share in our responsive reading, number 445, The Womb of the Stars by Joy Atkinson. And Lori, would you lead us with the first lines? And then this side, we can read the italicized lines. And I'll make sure I'm out of the way of the screen. So.
The womb of stars. Remnants of their fiery furnaces pulse through our veins.
We are of the stars, the dust of the explosions cast across space.
We are of the earth. We breathe and live in the breath of ancient plants and beasts.
Their cells nourish the soil. We build our communities on their harvest of gifts.
Our fingers trace the curves carved in clay and stone by forebears unknown to us.
We are a part of the great circle of humanity, gathered around the fire, the hearth, the altar.
Anew this day, to celebrate our common heritage.
May we recall in gratitude all that has given us birth. So with mothers in mind and fathers in mind and grandparents in mind, some of us call this Gender Non-Binary Parents' Day #1. And all the mentors and caregivers, everyone that nourishes from the smallest little ones all the way to the last days, we give thanks. Happy Mother's Day.
I invite you to rise in body and or spirit and join us in our opening song number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. And we're fortunate enough to have Lori Cross doing double duty, leading us on hymns today as well.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving night, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place.
For time for all ages today, we're going to do a spiritual practice we've been talking about. We'll be talking about self-care today and ways in which we as caretakers, whether that's mothers or fathers or mentors, am I not on?
It's off.
No, that's... Never done this before. No, because my batteries... Nope, there we go. Okay. There we go. So, we will be talking about self-care, as I was saying, whether us as mothers or fathers or friends or mentors or teachers, especially in the past couple of years, has been very stressful, to say the least, right? So one of the things we did this morning with the children, because it works with children, but it also works with adults, is meditating in a very simple way. It's called a body scan meditation. Short, we're going to do a short one. You can do them longer. And basically you kind of focus on certain parts of our bodies and where we're holding tension. We often will hear or feel and hold those things in different places. And one of the things we've been talking with the kids with our OWL program, something that's really important right now, is that we need to be in tune with our bodies because they are our bodies that we are in now for us to have. So we're going to do this meditation together. So got my little bowl here. So sit comfortably and relaxed. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. If not, stare at a kind of neutral spot. Take some deep breaths in through your nose, counting up to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And out through your mouth, counting down. 4, 3, 2, 1. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and out, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take another deep breath in through your nose, 1 out through your mouth. Be present in this room. Begin by focusing at the very top of your body, at your scalp, as your hair grows out. What things do you feel? Is it tense up there? Can we loosen it up? We feel our hair in the breeze of the ventilation system. We fear nothing. Continue to take deep breaths. Move down your body to your ears. What things do you hear? Things can you hear? Moving down towards your mouth, your jaw, relaxing your jaw. Think about your sense of taste and smell in your mouth and nose. What joyful things come to them. Let's move down into our neck and our shoulders, where many of us hold a lot of tension. Purposely loosen those shoulders. Relax the neck. Again, breathing in and out. Move down to our back, our stomachs as we feel our backs against our chairs, supported. We feel in our stomachs. We feel there. Many of us hold stress there. We feel pain. Can you, in your mind, relax your stomach, your ab muscles? You may slouch a little bit. Let the back of the chair hold you, just as you are being held. Let's move to our elbows and hands. Perhaps we are people who keep our hands balled up in fists at all times because we are anxious or angry or frustrated. Can we physically relax our hands now and mentally let go of those feelings of anger, frustration, stress? Now let's move to our legs and our knees and feet. How do we feel about them and what they do for us or don't do for us? If they are tense, let's relax those. Now that we've moved through our body, relaxing all parts of it, just sit for a moment, taking deep breaths. Sit in the silence. Now, as you are willing and able, open your eyes back up. I hope you feel a little more relaxed, a little more tense. I know I do. It's a good short exercise to do in the middle of any kind of stressful situation. As I reminded the kids, it's really good to do when you're falling asleep. But even in the middle of the day, you can find a place to do that for 3 minutes. So, thank you.
We'll say it was a gift for the moms and dads in the room to have the children leave calm for Mother's Day. So thank you, Nick. It is the time for the offering to be given and received. And 50% is going to go to support the works and ministries of our congregation. And 50% will go to support New Jersey Together, the Morris area chapter. And this organization is a coalition of different congregations, including our own in this community. And it makes a big difference in terms of the lives of families and individuals. Their work on eliminating disparities in criminal justice, their work around affordable housing, their work around access to mental health care and addiction, and their work during coronavirus to help people access testing and vaccines. So thank you for your generosity. It makes a difference.
I'm becoming my mother. I'm becoming the image of her. In the mirror upon closer inspection, I see her reflection recur. I've developed her profile. I've developed her furrowing brow. That odd little quake her mouth used to make, I've started to take up now. I'm becoming my mother. I'm becoming so set in her ways. I'll be somewhere mid-sentence and stop, 'cause I'll hear myself copying her turn of phrase. And the thing that's so weird, the person I'd feared becoming, I'm coming to be. And the more that I grow like my mother, the more that I grow to like me.
The Journey by Mary Oliver. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough and a wild night and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do. Determined to save the only life you could save.
Thank you.
It is the time in our service where we honor the milestones, the joys, the sorrows, and the transitions that have happened in the lives of our fellow congregants and friends since we last met. The first is from Marjorie Wormser. I am filled with gratitude for the comfort and closure by the friends my mother left behind during yesterday's memorial at my childhood spiritual home, the Central Unitarian Church in Paramus. And please send healing thoughts and prayers for my sister's spouse who was admitted to the hospital last night for issues not yet diagnosed. Let us hold Marjorie and the whole Wormser family in our hearts. May her mother's legacy as a matriarch sharing love in their family and love in their UU congregation be remembered fondly and bring a guiding light. And may that other family member get some answers soon, and may they be on a path of healing. I want to share a milestone. Yesterday, or Friday, it's Sunday, Friday, I officiated at the wedding ceremony of Carly Nemeth, Ken and Nina Nemeth's daughter. Carly married Chris Scally in a beautiful ceremony filled with laughter and tears. Those two are so in love. May they always have that day as a touchstone, and may this be a bright new beginning. And from Janet Horst, who is here in the room and fitting following milestone. Next Sunday, Janet and Dave Horst, she says, I will celebrate our 40th anniversary. It all started out as the unthinkable, then love story, a bit of a star track, is that right? To places and countries I never expected to see. Not one, but 2 stars are born, time gone by, and hopefully never cruise control. Love you, Dave. May your 40 years behind and all the years ahead burn as brightly as a star that could lead us all on the path of love. I invite everyone into a time of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, Spirit of an abundant love and a fierce love, move in us and through us and out from within us into this world in need of healing. Make us instruments of liberation in a week where many of us are holding heartbreak with the leak of the decision from the Supreme Court. We don't know what the final decision will be, but we do know that it seems it will be headed in the direction of reducing access to health care and to reproductive rights. We name that this will disproportionately impact people in rural areas of the country and people who identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color, or trans, or non-binary. We will work together, and with our partner organization, UU Faith Action of New Jersey, to ensure that everyone has access to determination over their bodies and to building families on foundations and principles of well-being. We hold at this time a beloved in our congregation, Jamie, who serves as co-chair of that reproductive rights task force, and her whole team, as well as all the escorts that she works with to ensure that people are safe right here in New Jersey when they seek health care. May their shielding presence provide people with the knowledge that they are worthy and loved and their decisions will be respected. On this Mother's Day, let us also celebrate those who have nurtured children at every age, children at the age of infancy all the way up until their final day of life. And we include parents and grandparents. We include people who have birthed children and those who have adopted children and those who are godparents and mentors and teachers and the health caregivers who have cared so well for all of us in this time of a pandemic. Today we give thanks. We lift up their light and we faithfully move to creating a community here at the Morristown UU Fellowship and beyond, where families and individuals' health and well-being is nurtured, is advocated for, and is honored. All these things and so many others are our prayers and meditations on this complicated day of joy and grief, of gratitude, of complexity, of anger and forgiveness, of all of it. And may everyone know that they are a child of God, a child of love, and they are a blessing. Amen, and blessed be one and all. Will you rise in body or in spirit, and let us sing together, We Laugh, We Cry.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild, but dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a time to be together. And with the grace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. We believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a time to be together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
There is a story that Anne Lamott writes about in her book, Bird by Bird, based on a story she heard from Jack Cornfield. There was an 8-year-old boy with a younger sister who was dying of leukemia. And Jack shared that this was a true story. That boy was told that without a blood transfusion, his sister would die. Their parents were told by the doctors that he would probably be the most suitable donor, and they asked, could the doctors test his blood? He conceded, and sure enough, he was a good match. So they asked, would he be willing to go ahead and give his sister a pint of blood? And they shared that would help her to survive. He gave a curious answer. He said that he would need to think about it overnight. The next day, he told his parents, yes, I am willing to give my sister my blood. They took him to the hospital where he was put on a gurney beside his 6-year-old sister. They stuck his arm with the needle and withdrew the pint, and it was immediately transfused into his sister. The boy lay in silence as he watched her, as the blood dripped into her body. The doctor finally came over to the boy and asked, how are you doing? The boy opened his eyes and asks, how soon until I start to die? He thought he was giving his sister all of his blood, and he willingly said yes. On one hand, I find this story deeply touching. I am an older sibling who loves my younger brother deeply. I would do anything for him. I'm also someone who had cancer as a child and wouldn't be here without blood transfusions, including 150 members of my home congregation that donated blood for me. So yeah, it pulls at my heartstrings. On Mother's Day, the story also connects more generally to how parents are willing so frequently to do anything for their children. As a pastor, I've heard several parents and grandparents over the years say they would lay down their life for their child or their grandchild, usually in a time of despair when a young person is dying. On the other hand, I am troubled by this story, that one child with such a capacity for love would think that his parents or the doctors were asking him to sacrifice his life for their other child, that his sister would be chosen over him, that his life was somehow less worthy. I have also learned since that a story very similar to this one has circulated in different forms for nearly 90 years. we do love telling stories of self-sacrifice. While some are inspiring testimonies that remind us of our great capacity for compassion and/or courage, others are troubling examples of people who give up more than they have to give, who get used up in the process, and who wind up with nothing left to give and a fraction of themselves. A children's story I grew up on, Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree, comes to mind. In the story, some of you may remember, are two characters, a tree, which happens in this story to have the gender of a woman, and a boy. And these two characters love one another. That tree gives up everything for the boy's well-being, and in the end, the tree becomes merely a stump. She has nothing left to give. If the boy, who becomes a man in the story, had also cared for her well-being, she might have remained a tree with branches and leaves to offer him shade for the rest of his life. If you apply a feminist critique to the book, it is problematic because it mirrors the way that women were and sometimes are often asked to be the constant giver in relationships. And that keys into a kind of archetype, if you will, for Mother's Day. The book was published in 1964, a time when gender roles were even more prescribed than they are today. These stories are coming up for me on Mother's Day in 2022 because so many parents and caregivers of all kinds have been so isolated and facing so many challenges throughout the pandemic, and many are not okay. From all that I have read and from my pastoral hours, I can tell you that there are some who are feeling terribly alone or hopeless with few places or nowhere to turn for help. There are some who are over the edge of despair and struggling with suicidal ideations. If that is you, please reach out as others have done. Let's work together to get you connected to some help. And I'll name that it's not just parents and caregivers who are struggling with well-being. Others are struggling as well. Our teens are coping with higher levels of anxiety, and suicide among teens as well as their parents is on the rise. People who live alone are struggling. Parents of children too young to receive the vaccine are feeling more isolated, and so are some of their children. And so are people who are living in assisted living or retirement communities. Young adults are having challenges entering the workforce in this swirling time of change. I could go on, but this is not meant to be an exhaustive list. We are all coping with some level of anxiety, some feelings of challenge and experiences of challenge and grief in the face of the ongoing uncertainty of how coronavirus will evolve, the uncertainty of war, of the economy, and the uncertainty of reproductive rights and more. This is a time when I stand here as your pastor in the pulpit and remind you, please do take good care of yourself. It's not just my signature frequently in an email. It is a spiritual practice I invite you into. Take good care of you, your mental health, your physical health, and your spiritual health. You. Me, yes, thank you, all of us. It's the very first element of active membership here. It is to nourish your spirit. Who you are is worthy of care and protection, and your worth is not staked to a certain level of self-sacrifice. It is not staked to accomplishments. It is not staked to perfection. In order to put others first, you sometimes have to put yourself first. Now, many of us haven't flown lately, so we may have forgotten that reminder that we all hear at the beginning of a flight. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help a neighbor to put on their oxygen mask, even if it's your child. It is not selfish or self-centered to focus on your well-being. It is holy work. You are the child that is worthy of experiencing rest, love, compassion, nourishment, joy. The fact that you are not the only one that is worthy of these things doesn't diminish the fact that you are worthy of all of them. Speaking to caregivers again, none of us can care for our children or our parents or our friends or our spouses or life partners or anyone we are in a caregiving relationship with at the moment without caring for ourselves. And here is something else I've learned in the 17 years I've served as your minister. Caregivers often die before the people that they are caring for. According to a Stanford University study, caregivers in general have a 63% higher mortality rate than non-caregivers. And here's another more specific example from that study. 40% of Alzheimer's caregivers die before the person who's identified as the patient. Now, to be clear, this isn't a sermon against the role of caregiver. I am a minister, a parent, and I took care of my mother in my home at the end of her life. But I can't and couldn't fulfill any of these roles without help. One of the reasons being a parent has been harder over the last couple of years is that for a long time, so many of us parents were cut off from the sources of support that we had prior to the pandemic. During the pandemic, my caregiving roles increased, all of which give my life great meaning. And this is a sermon that reminds us that when that happens, when caregiving increases, self-care must remain a priority. It cannot be neglected for long without consequences. One of the big challenges in this time has been respite care. I know some single mothers that pretty much raise their infants without anybody else helping them for the first months of their child's life. That is very difficult, and I want to affirm that for anyone in that situation. Or people whose partner's health declined, but they couldn't get doctor's appointments or a diagnosis to be able to move things along. Or if they had one, the friends who might normally sit with their loved one for a time couldn't do that. One of my all-time favorite stories of sibling love comes to mind, and it comes from this community. There was a woman here whose husband had become wheelchair-bound. She took such good and tender care of him. Eventually, his care needs became too great for her alone and beyond the coverage allowed by their insurance and what they could afford. Now, at first, the couple's friends, including in this community, stepped up and spent time with him, which was very enjoyable because he was very bright, so that she could run errands or have lunch with a friend. Eventually, though, his needs grew, and this woman's health began to deteriorate. Her brother was worried about her, and he paid for more professional care hours, and she accepted the help. Her brother gave up a portion of his treasure for his sister to gain more respite care and for her husband to be well cared for. What a gift! Now, not everyone could afford that particular gift, but not everyone who can afford it would offer it. What a loving example of a brother giving up something for a sister he loved. So what is self-care? Sometimes it can be a short escape from the challenges we are facing, maybe an indulgence, such as watching your favorite TV program or your favorite YouTube star, or splurging on a one-time massage or the like. Those can help us to at least push pause on the strain or to feel better in the moment. But a TV series or a one-time splurge isn't enough and doesn't really change your wellness, especially if the rest of that week or your weeks are being lived at an unforgiving pace or are filled with stress. The self-care that I am thinking about today is more the need for sustained practices that you engage in regularly to promote well-being. And then when the next challenge arises on the path, you are in a much better place to remain grounded and to respond. Here are some examples of spiritual practices and self-care disciplines that you might consider. A parents' covenant circle, a monthly gathering for mutual sharing and support, a caregivers' covenant circle. And we have had both in this community, and we're about to launch new parent circles soon. A daily or weekly yoga practice. Hazel Bell at the first service met with our children and they all did yoga outside together. Well, Hazel offers yoga right here every Friday morning and you are invited. A daily or weekly gratitude journaling practice. A weekly choir practice. How many people would say that being in the choir offers community and song, which are both healing? Anyone in this room feel that way? Yes, what a great spiritual practice. A weekly worship practice here with us, a space of reflection and community, of spoken word and song and ritual. Getting enough sleep. Regular time with friends and family on Zoom or the phone or in person. A regular practice of hiking in the woods, starting something new, maybe a pottery class or a poetry class, something to tap into your creativity. What matters is that it is a sustaining, regular discipline and practice in your life. That's what creates a transformative possibility. Self-care is not always easy, I'll mention. Sometimes it's about not putting off the doctor's appointment or the dentist appointment or the appointment with the psychologist. It's about that body scan that Nick was leading us through and acknowledging when something is wrong and seeking treatment as a regular practice. Self-care is about acknowledging your limits. It's about accepting when you're tired and finding the time to rest, acting on feeling tired. Self-care is about asking for help and accepting help when you need it. It's about allowing yourself to make mistakes and then not carrying so much guilt about them. It's about practicing healthy boundaries and saying no. Self-care is about sharing your feelings, naming what is true for you, even when it might upset someone else. It's about taking time to understand your needs, that of your body, your mind, and your spirit, and prioritizing them regularly. The paradox, of course, is that when you spend hours each week on your own well-being, you will have more to give. The rest of the hours will be more impactful. Self-care is about giving and receiving. It's about building a world based on mutuality rather than disparity. Self-care can be radical. It can be revolutionary. So today, let us do our part to reclaim Mother's Day, which was started by activists who wanted to raise consciousness about the infant mortality rate and about the rising toll of death from war. Let us reclaim it as a holiday that reminds us that a human life is precious and worthy and sacred, including your own. So, take care of yourselves, for it is holy work. Let us rise in body or in spirit and share in our closing song, We Are Dancing Sarah's Circle.
Dancing Sarah's circle, we are dancing Sarah's circle, we are dancing Sarah's circle, siblings, family, all. Here we seek and find our history, here we seek and find our history. Here we seek and find our history, siblings, family, all. We will all do our own naming. We will all do our own naming. We will all do our own naming, siblings, family, all. Every round a generation, every round a generation, every round a generation, siblings, family, all. On and on the circles moving, on and on the circles moving, on and on the circles moving, siblings, family, all. Siblings, family, all.
And now, in our going, may the light of love bless us and keep us. May it shine down upon us and out from within us. May it grant all of us to become peacemakers, to become self-care takers, and to become those that work for the care and well-being of others too. For this is the day that you and I are given. So let us rejoice and sow gladness in it. Go forth and know you are a blessing. Go and share it with others.